Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are at in the world today. Thank you for attending. How secure is your SD-WAN, or in reality, security as it relates to SD-WAN, today's webinar? So before we dive into the presentation, I just have a couple of housekeeping items for our audience. If you have a question at any time during this webinar, please submit it using the Ask a Question button located on the top left-hand side of the player. Your question will be addressed during the Q&A at the end of the presentation today. We've also got a couple of additional resources for you to check out in the Attachments tab at the top of the player. You can download the slide deck from this presentation, as well as the other resources that are made available. At the end, please take a moment to rate our presentation and provide feedback by clicking on the Rate This button on the right-hand side of the player. And finally, as a reminder, a recorded version of this presentation will be available using the same URL immediately following the conclusion. So feel free to share it with your friends and colleagues using the various different social buttons that are located on your console. And so with that, I'd like to introduce our speakers. So I'm Rob McBride, Director of Enterprise and Telco Solutions here at Versa Networks. And I'm joined today with Sunil Ravi, who's our Distinguished Security Architect at Versa Networks as well. And Sunil, welcome.
Thank you, Rob, for the introduction. And thanks, everyone, for viewing this webinar. So today we are going to talk about SD-WAN and the security aspects of the SD-WAN, right? So first we're going to tee off with what exists today, what is the problem we are trying to solve with SD-WAN, and then we are going to consider all the different security aspects of considering SD-WAN as a deployment choice. How do you secure the SD-WAN, and how do you secure the traffic when you choose traffic to go through the SD-WAN path? Okay, with that, let's jump into the next slide here, where we look into how a typical enterprise WAN and branch looks like today, right? So this picture shows a typical enterprise with 100 branches with one headquarters. And these enterprise locations need to access both internet, web applications, and software as a service, cloud applications through either the internet links or the Ethernet or private MPLS links. So now that's all fine and good, because MPLS is typically a private network, and majority of the times there's no encryption, but it's a private network. And all the traffic from the branches typically go through the private MPLS link to the corporate headquarters, and then from there there's a security complex that usually goes through the security stack, which includes a firewall, unified threat management appliance, data loss prevention, malware protection, and on top of that you have analytics for full visibility of the traffic. And from that headquarters, you actually have the traffic going out to the internet or any cloud application or wherever the final destination is. So now things are working. It's great. So it's been working quite well for several years, or probably almost a decade now. But there's some aspects of this network and security architecture that introduces some problems to be solved today, because as the internet applications and SaaS applications are path optimized, because the cloud is actually pervasive, and from the branch, if you trombone all of the traffic back to the headquarters and then out, then there's a performance impact and user experience gets affected. The second problem is the bandwidth available on the MPLS or private network is not sufficient, or it is expensive, where the internet broadband link is more commoditized. There's inexpensive bandwidth capacity available, quite in a very accessible format. So internet becomes a choice. However, if you want to switch your traffic over to the internet, there's security concerns, because your traffic is now going over the wide, internet, which opens a whole new attack surface, right? So all of these problems, are addressed by a brand new technology that's available today from several companies. and this is called software-defined WAN. So let's take a look into what SD-WAN does. So yeah, definitely, like there's always a new and hopefully a better way to do things. Now, when you consider deploying SD-WAN, how does it change your WAN architecture, and how does it change, how traffic goes in another branch? What are the things to consider and such? So consider the same scenario, and instead of using traditional network and security appliances, now consider SD-WAN in your architecture. So in this case, we still have the branch locations, going to the internet and Ethernet private MPLS. Now, the change here is that the traffic from the branch locations don't need to come all the way to the headquarters, right? You could actually have to optimize the traffic, some of the traffic, to go direct internet from the branch or directly to the SaaS applications. And the corporate applications that are hosted at the headquarters, you actually get the traffic to go to the head end and access all the corporate applications. And also for branch-to-branch traffic, the traffic doesn't need to go to the headquarters. It can go direct branch to branch, right, over the public internet or over the MPLS. Now, if you look at all the different advantages that SD-WAN provides, first, it provides a zero-touch, provisioning, in the sense that you don't have to have a huge deployment planning, integration planning, because if you want to, turn up a branch, you just ship the device to the branch, you turn it up, it joins the private network, and it automatically starts enabling all the secure overlays with encrypted traffic flowing between the various branches on top of the public internet. So SD-WAN provides you a secure overlay private network on top of the public internet. Now you have a portal access, so if you actually consider using a managed SD-WAN service from one of the service providers, then the service provider would provide you not only the access, whether it be broadband or internet, but you would actually have a managed portal where you can actually go in and configure and manage and view all of the different aspects of the SD-WAN and how your WAN traffic is traversing through the MPLS and broadband networks. The other significant advantage of app steering is that you don't need to trombone all of your traffic to one location, or it's not an all or nothing, because now you have an advanced traffic steering policy where you can define on a per application basis how your traffic should be routed over the internet or the public internet, or to the headquarters and back, or direct branch to branch, and so on, right? And typically, most SD-WAN products actually come with a stateful firewall embedded that provides basic level of control of traffic, between the various sites. Now, the important question that is not answered, from the previous slide, is the full security stack, right? If you have the firewall, the UTM, DLP, malware, analytics. Now, where does this stack go in the new SD-WAN architecture, right? Typically, in the previous world, before the switch to SD-WAN, you actually have this full stack of security built in, fully integrated, tested, and you stamp it out at each of the locations that need direct internet access, or you actually go with a managed security provider that has this full security stack in the cloud somewhere, and you route your traffic to the cloud and out, right? So these are the two options. But then with SD-WAN, now you have a choice of how to do this security. So we're going to look into some options of how this is done. So let's go to the next slide and see, how to do it. So first, we want to spend a little bit about the SD-WAN and the security aspects of how do you secure your SD-WAN infrastructure itself. So here we have a few, topics to actually share some information on how or what are the security best practices in terms of securing your SD-WAN deployment first. So first you secure your infrastructure, and then you secure the traffic that goes through that SD-WAN infrastructure. So to look at the SD-WAN deployment security itself, first you need to secure your control plane, right? So you need to make sure that the authentication is bulletproof, the encryptions are following the highest level of data encryption standards. The control plane is sort of like the control network between all of your branch devices. So you need to make sure that you have a fully secure control plane. And most SD-WAN products today offer a clean separation of the control plane versus data plane. The control plane provides a mechanism for all of these branch devices to authenticate themselves and set up the constructs that are like needed for the encryption that is used in the data plane. And when it comes to the control plane security itself, you need to consider the key and certificate strategy. So you need to have a mechanism where the keys themselves are never shared on the wire, right? Consider a product which actually offers a mechanism to not share the key across the public internet. Otherwise, if the key gets compromised, you lose the keys to the kingdom, right? The second one is that do not use a key for an extended period of time. You periodically rotate the key, and the key rotation should be hitless, so the traffic should not be impacted. And most of the times, the length of time to which you have to renegotiate the keys should be like configurable. It varies from environment to environment. So consider an option to keep the key rekeying interval configurable. The other part of it is the trusted platform module. So consider the platforms that offer a mechanism to secure the key material, so it is completely tamper-proof. There's very less and very, very high bar to actually compromise the keys. So the keys are never extracted out of the trusted platform module or the hardware. So also consider a hardware security module for the certificate management, and you actually need to deal with automatic rotation of keys and then generation of certificates. And also, if you want to revoke certificates and such, you have to have a full-blown certificate management infrastructure. Okay, for that, we recommend a hardware security module. The solution should also offer anti-replay, and perfect forward secrecy. These are no new problems. These are already very well-known attack surfaces. So when you consider encrypted overlay network, you should always have these anti-replay and perfect forward secrecy turned on. As far as the data encryption standards are concerned, there's FIPS and common criteria that goes through a whole list of encryption standards that you need to follow, whether it be MAC or digest or key standards or encryption algorithms. You have to adhere to at least a higher level of standards, SHA-256 or AES, when it comes to encryption and the message digest. The other three aspects that you want to consider in an SD-WAN product is multi-tenancy. So more often than not, the enterprise network is very, very segmented, and just pure micro-segmentation might not help in certain cases. So if you have a product that has full-blown multi-tenancy where you can completely isolate and provide a walled garden to separate network segments, all the way from not only the network device but all the way to the management plane, then that has a significant advantage. So you could kind of partition your networks even at the branch locations to guest Wi-Fi and corporate network and partner network and so on, and you actually have completely virtualized each network segment and totally isolated it to its own tenant level hierarchy. Multi-tenancy by itself is not sufficient. You also need role-based access control to go with it, so that each administrator for that particular network segment gets whatever rights and privileges they need so that they can actually operate the network within the boundaries that are associated with that role. A stateful firewall is a much needed part and parcel of the SD-WAN, which majority of the products are actually offering with the SD-WAN solution. It provides basic network access control as to what is allowed and what is denied. So considering like the deployment itself is secure, now let's go take a deeper look at, okay, so now that the SD-WAN deployment itself is secured, now how do you secure your SD-WAN traffic, right? So what are the attack surfaces that are still open, right? So consider the scenario where we discussed earlier. We have a full stack of security which was earlier deployed in either the cloud or the headquarters, and all of the traffic is getting scrubbed. And now, like if we have SD-WAN, so how do you do security, right? So the main concerns here are visibility, control, and threat management. So now, if you consider visibility, now your traffic is actually when it originates at the branch, it kind of like goes through multiple different paths, right? And then now you have to like have complete visibility as to, like, depending on which path the traffic is traversing through. Is that path secure, right? I mean, some attacker may artificially inject some path degradation on one path to force your traffic to go through another path, and maybe that path is full of landmines. So how do you ensure that you get visibility into, like, at any given point in time, which path your traffic took, right? And now you want to correlate that to, what kind of security measures are taken, and how the traffic gets scrubbed, when the traffic traverses that path, So now if you have visibility into SD-WAN traffic in one piece and visibility into security aspects of it in another screen, now how do you correlate those two together, right? So that is a pretty complex problem. So what we recommend is you actually have a visibility solution that provides a unified visibility into both your SD-WAN, how your traffic is actually steered towards which paths, as well as the security aspects of it, all within a single pane of glass, so you can actually visualize your traffic, where it's going, and what kind of security measures are being applied, when the traffic goes through various paths, right? So the other part is once you see, like, okay, this is how my traffic is going and how it's being secured, you might want to, like, control, like, what and how the traffic gets scrubbed for and such, right? So again, when you get your traffic going through certain paths, there's two decisions to be made. One is the steering decision, the second part is the security decision. So now if you have these two as two disjoint silos, right? You view your you visualize your traffic, and if you want to, like, enforce a certain steering decision, and if you want to enforce a certain security decision, those are two different management planes, and anytime you want to, like, make such decisions, it operationally becomes very complex. So again, in this case, if you have a unified management plane where in a single pane of glass you're able to, like, structure your traffic, design your traffic, and then look at all your steering decisions, and then be able to control your steering decision and security decision all in the same place. Operating your SD-WAN network would be much more simpler, right? And the third part of it is threat management. So when it comes to threat management, there's all sorts of issues that comes into play. That usually, like, there's some traffic that may want to exit direct to the internet directly at the branch. So first, for such kind of traffic, you need to apply the proper security controls, whether it be access control or compliance requirements, or even, like, people actually browsing to malicious website and bringing in malware. So you actually have to make sure that entire attack surface gets closed, right? And the other part is the internet WAN links can be prone to attack. So there could be some DDoS attacks on the WAN links that a certain branch location is using. So you once the WAN link is actually rendered unusable, then the whole branch may go offsite. So consider actually having a basic DDoS prevention mechanism that can actually protect your WAN links at the site. So there could be all kinds of inbound traffic that is coming in. So you want to control, what kind of traffic is allowed at, inbound at a certain branch. Okay. The third part of it is, the traffic that goes to cloud applications, right? So if you go to Office 365, there's been many security research, articles and webinars about, the Office 365 itself not in and of itself not being secure, and people recommending having an extra layer of security on top of that to secure your Office 365 traffic. So again, at the SaaS level, for the cloud applications, you need to have another layer of security. And again, we have like traffic going to the corporate, either branch to branch or branch to headquarters. So for all of that traffic, also you need to have like controls on, how that traffic is actually getting routed, and whether the traffic is allowed or not between branches or between branch to headquarters. So if you have a remote location in another country, maybe you want to control allow only certain types of traffic to actually go from that branch to other branches, and the rest of the traffic may need to come to the headquarters for scrubbing and then go to the other branches. So all of that kind of flexibility needs to be provided by the SD-WAN solution. Okay, so let's see, some more aspects. And so these are all of the concerns that we have still open with the SD-WAN deployment. And let's try to take a stab at, how do we solve it, right? So looking at the problem set a little bit more, methodically, right? So you actually have a branch location. You have traffic coming in to the device, and it's actually going, taking several different paths. You have traffic that's going from branch to branch. You have traffic going from branch to hub location. You have traffic going from the branch location directly to the cloud and directly to the internet. So now, how do you secure all of these different types of traffic, right? So there's several different deployment options. So you could actually consider SD-WAN at the branch and offload your security to some other location. So you don't do any kind of security at the branch location itself, but direct your traffic to the cloud and use a cloud-based managed security provider or existing corporate data center. You already have a security complex, a security stack installed. So you actually direct the traffic to that location and then send it out from there. And it's also like not all or nothing kind of scenarios. In some cases, you may actually like have some flexibility where some traffic has to take this deployment option, and then some traffic takes another deployment option. Where in the second case, you actually have on-premise security. However, you have like separate devices, an SD-WAN device and a security device providing security capabilities at the branch location on-premise itself. And yet a third option would be that you have an integrated security device where there's a single device that provides both SD-WAN and security. So let's consider like this problem set. Now how this is all the traffic that is at the branch. How do you secure it? And these are the three different deployment choices that are available. And we can take a deeper look at these deployment choices and see what are the advantages and disadvantages of using those kind of deployment options. Okay, so the first one being the SD-WAN branches with off-premise security. So there could be a managed service, a security service in the cloud, or a corporate data center has a security stack. So from the SD-WAN location, you actually get the traffic back to either the cloud or enterprise data center and apply this traffic and send it out. So the pros of that approach is it's easy to deploy and operate. The branch location is like very simplified. You actually just have an SD-WAN device. you have managed options available. So if you go with a managed service provider, the managed security service provider will manage the entire security for you, and it's like a security as a service kind of offerings. Now, the disadvantages with that kind of approach is that the traffic inspected at off-premise location may not be path optimized, right? Because the SD-WAN appliance does a lot of groundwork to calibrate all the different paths for a given application, and based on that, it makes an intelligent choice as to, okay, this is the best path to direct this application traffic to, right? But then when you send that same traffic to a cloud or enterprise data center, that may not be the best path. Now there's a conflicting decision because security would enforce the traffic to go to a certain path, and but SD-WAN thinks that, okay, the traffic will get better performance if it goes a different path. Now that cannot be resolved easily. So the second part of it is that there's packet replication and forward error correction that is actually offered by the SD-WAN device to improve network performance experience, right? So these two features may become ineffective because most of the time when you have a packet replication, it's a bookended solution. So unless the managed security provider has the same SD-WAN appliance, and you actually dedupe the packets on the other end, or regenerate the packets from the parity packets, you actually don't have the full traffic view, and the security appliance or security features may become ineffective. So and then that managed security provider needs to have the SD-WAN appliance at every different location that they provide the service for. So that would actually become quite complex and expensive to actually make the packet replication and FEC features work alongside security with the managed security provider. The other option is if you don't have any security being applied at the SD-WAN device on the branch location, then there's no security for inbound traffic, and there's no security for branch to branch and branch to hub traffic. And we don't have any single pane of glass because most of the time the service provider will have their own view for the security, and the SD-WAN will have a different view. Now you have a problem of correlating the two views together to actually analyze how your traffic is going. The other part is, you actually have a different management plane. If you want to configure something in SD-WAN, if you want to configure something in security, you have to go to two different places to configure it. And the performance impact is always there because the traffic is getting processed for SD-WAN on one device and through another set of devices at the managed service provider to scrub the traffic. So that is actually an additional performance impact. Okay. Next, we go to the second delivery option, deployment option, which is on premises. You have SD-WAN device and the security device both separately. Now, the pros of this approach would be that you have security for all inbound, outbound traffic at the branch location. Path optimization is there, and packet replication, FEC, everything works great, right? Now, what are the cons? You can have it can be very complex and costly to deploy and operate. Imagine if you have 100 different branch locations, and you have to stamp out the security stack and the SD-WAN and all of this at each and every location. It might become quite cumbersome. The second one is that you have multiple security appliances to scrub the inbound and outbound traffic because you need to in order to provide prevent or protect your WAN links on the SD-WAN appliance, you have to have a firewall in front of the SD-WAN appliance. And once the traffic is actually going outbound, for the outbound traffic, the SD-WAN appliance should do the path optimization, and then the firewall gets applied. So internally there should be firewall. So there could be two different firewalls needed to secure the inbound and outbound traffic. The other part is again, you don't have a single pane of glass to manage both network SD-WAN and security. So you have two different management planes. So anytime you want to configure something, you need to make sure that the configuration is done right and is correct between both the appliances. And you don't have a single unified plane of viewing both the the SD-WAN analytics and the security analytics in one single pane of glass. So that also leads to operational complexity. Performance degrade because some of the same application-based path steering decisions and the application-based security decisions, this redundant processing in two different appliances that may lead to inefficiencies and in the performance, they may introduce additional latency. Okay, so now let's take a look at the third option, which is on-premise. You have integrated SD-WAN and security all in one device, right? So this is actually like the third option where you have like many advantages to this because it's easy to deploy and operate. You have one device everywhere, and your config gets pushed from a centralized location to all these devices. You have a single pane of glass to not only manage, configure, and operate, but also view all of the and visualize all of the network and security events all in one single pane of glass. It offers better performance because it's one integrated stack where you do all of the packet inspection, and then based on the packet inspection you take your traffic steering decisions and security decisions all in one go, and it's the best efficiency possible. But what are the flip side? On the flip side, what are the disadvantages to this? So depending on the vendor, because like you have multiple options here where you actually have everything integrated into a single stack, or you could actually run a third-party security appliance as a VM. So depending on how you positioned it or like how you architected it, it may actually increase the cost of depending on the vendor. The second one is that you may not have the option of running multiple security functions because it's a pretty low-end device, and because of the cost, you actually have a very low-end device that cannot run all of these functions on-premise. So in such cases, you still need to send the traffic to like a headquarters or the cloud to actually do the security inspection. And due to compliance reasons, you may need like separation of security functions, and in such case, you want a diversity of security appliances. That may not be possible in some cases. So that's the third deployment option. So hopefully, these three different deployment options have provided enough insights into, what are the security considerations when you consider SD-WAN. And these are all the different, things that we would like to highlight in terms of like considering your new brand strategy. You consider the depth of the integrated security functions. You consider single pane of glass management for configuring, managing, deploying, and visualizing all of your network traffic. You have you secure your control plane, you secure your data plane, have full multi-tenancy with role-based access control. You have advanced threat detection and prevention. You need to have it as a choice to actually roll this out at any given branch location, provided you have the sufficient high-capacity device to execute all those functions. And you have very good contextual information, because when you want to steer traffic, when you want to apply security decisions, you want to have very, very fine-grained control over the traffic. These days, because of the mobile and cloud revolution, you need to have the decisions at a very fine-grained level based on application, user, location, and device. So these are some of the capabilities that are provided by a security device, but not an SD-WAN. But having that kind of granularity in an SD-WAN device will definitely help enhance your security posture when it comes to SD-WAN deployments. Definitely consider a product that has integrated hypervisor where you actually have a mechanism to roll out third-party security functions if needed, and you actually have security for traffic that traverses all the different paths, regardless of which direction it's going on, and you actually have a lot of flexibility in terms of vendor choice. That I'll pass it back to Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Sunil. That was quite a bit of stuff. A lot of great stuff, actually, right? To kind of help our audience actually understand that SD-WAN by itself, while it has inherent security functions and security that it does, right, more to the point of the secure overlay, some levels of simplicity from a management perspective to kind of reduce that complexity. But there's obviously a lot of different layers that, as you look at designing your branches and your WAN, that you just need to not forget, right? You need to make sure that security is not looked at as an afterthought. And as you design your new next generation branch and WAN architectures, right? Which arguably, there's a lot of enterprises today that are looking at SD-WAN to be the foundation of that next movement, so to speak, or that next architecture of theirs. That design your SD-WAN with security in mind from the very beginning. And you mentioned one critical point actually around deployment flexibility. That's actually very, very critical. I would agree with you on that because as you talk to customers have different sizes in their branches, and so those branches obviously are going to utilize and consume a different type of a on-premise or CPE-based type of an appliance, or potentially even use more of a cloud-based type of an approach. And so because of that, in your vendor selection, as you look at your SD-WAN vendor choices and their criteria, the deployment options for that vendor, for their solutions, it's critical because you don't want to have multiple different SD-WAN vendors or multiple different connectivity vendors that are providing you your services for your branch and WAN architecture, right? So, someone that can be deployed as virtual machines, small appliances to very, very large appliances for low performance to high performance is very, very critical. And so, within that, we do have a couple of small questions here. So let me go ahead and kind of look at them here real fast. We've been talking about, basic security with SD-WAN overall. And we kind of landed with a third option that was really talking about integrated security with SD-WAN. And so there was a question around this point that says, kind of what does Versa actually have specifically on this point? So Sunil, I can also help out too, right? But Sunil, if you could take roughly about 30, maybe 45 seconds, just kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. So we, at Versa, we actually thought about security from day one. So now we actually, in Versa, solution we offer SD-WAN integrated with security, and we provide a lot of flexibility in terms of enabling security in all the different deployment choices that we just described in this webinar. So it's very, very easy to configure Versa SD-WAN to actually direct the traffic to a cloud-based managed security provider. You can actually service chain the traffic to a third-party VM if you choose to go with like a multi-vendor approach. And when we service chain, we do offer not only like a multi-box solution, but also a single box solution where we can run third-party security virtual machines as a virtual machine within one box. It's called the Versa UCPE. And the third delivery option is we have like an integrated SD-WAN and security stack. And all of these can be done all at once in the sense that it's not like choose all or nothing, in a different approach. In any given branch location, you can deploy the Versa solution, and based on the application, based on the traffic, you could actually choose any of the deployment options that we just described.
Thank you. So yeah, actually, your answer actually answered a couple of other questions that were kind of asked here, so I'll just go and read them out just so we can kind of highlight them here in the webinar. So you actually highlighted, there was a question around, you mentioning UCPE, and the question was, does Versa have a UCPE solution? Well, obviously, you kind of answered that very directly. So yes, Versa is capable of and has an integrated hypervisor to be able to support third-party IP virtual services hosted on top of it, as well as, through our orchestration or management framework, we can actually do, first stage lifecycle management of those third-party services. The other one is obviously, can we be deployed as a cloud model, which kind of highlights our virtual capabilities and be deployed as a VM. And the other one was, is our NG firewall and UTM, are they deployed as a separate product? And I think you kind of highlighted there's multiple different ways to actually handle that. You either integrate it directly into the SD-WAN appliance, or truthfully, you could actually deploy us separately as a standalone and next generation firewall, utilizing software-defined principles. We actually call that software-defined security to the person asking that question, in addition to our UTM capabilities as well. Last question before we end the webinar, I just wanted to highlight this out because it's kind of important given the context of our subject. So does Versa support application, user, location, and device-based policies as you look at traffic steering as well as you kind of looking at the overall chain, in the traffic flow.
Absolutely. So we have thought about the fine-grained access control in security, and we thought it would become like very, very relevant in the SD-WAN context also. So in order to do traffic steering decisions, so we actually have application recognition that recognizes more than 3,000 applications out of the box. We have user authentication using several different authentication methods. We have full Active Directory integration. We have single sign-on with SAML. We have like a local user database on the device. And we have device identification through various mechanisms, both through passive monitoring and active probing. We can find out what kind of device they're accessing from, and we also find out which location they're coming in from. So we have all of the different capabilities, and based on each one of these like match criteria, you can define your steering policies and security policies.
That's awesome. So not only is it just not only for connectivity, it's also for secure connectivity effectively, right? So we can actually use it from a securing and policing aspect from a security lens versus just driving it from a more traffic steering connectivity lens.
Correct.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sunil, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And so just kind of close it out for our audience. Visit versanetworks.com. You see here on the screen to kind of learn more. We've got a lot of information up there about all of our software-defined solutions from WAN, from software-defining the WAN, the branch, as well as our security solutions. Subscribe to our channel. We've got a whole bunch more webinars coming up in the queue. And if you're interested, schedule a demo with us. It'll reach out to our sales as well as our technical experts, and we'll schedule a demonstration, come on site, and actually kind of show it to you in action. And obviously, as of course, please don't forget to rate this webinar and contact us if you have any other questions. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for attending, and I'd like to thank Sunil here, our presenter, and hope everyone has a great day no matter where at in the world you are. Thank you.
Thank you.